So we're going to talk about the big questions of equality and the work that you're doing now. But what really struck me in your book, so forward, it's forward on many levels, right? You were a forward, but it's forward in life, it's forward with these questions. You're an extraordinary athlete. You know, you are world class. You are way above we normal mortals who struggle like to hit a tennis ball or whatever we do. But in your book, you spend a lot of time showing us the Abby we don't see. You talk about intense Abby that we do see and chill Abby that we don't see. You talk about your struggles. Was that in part to kind of equalize yourself and your readers? Because it kind of levels the playing field. When I finished it, I thought, wow, this woman is a world-class athlete, but also somebody I can relate to.
Yeah, I think I was a world-class athlete. I'm getting squishy, is what I'm calling it.
Your squishy is going to be harder than whatever I'm ever going to achieve.
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head that I wrote this book. Originally, I wrote this book. Do you need help opening that?
Yes, I do. All right, humiliation.
It's only uphill from here, or no, downhill, right? I wrote the book originally at the end of my career. I decided to do it in November. I retired in December of last year. And it was just going to be more or less the story of my life and soccer. And I think that as I was writing it and as I was regurgitating all the memories of my life and all the memories of playing, I realized that I was kind of omitting quite a bit from not just my readers, but like myself. Because as somebody that's in the public eye, it can get a little daunting. You have your professional persona, your professional life, then you have your private life. And everybody needs to create those boundaries for themselves, regardless if you're on national television or not. But what I realized is that my private life, what I was doing in my private life, was actually something that was actually taking away from things that I could do in my professional life. So I wanted to actually bring to light a lot of things that I was feeling. And it wasn't in large part to humanize myself. When you've done something so well for so long, and you've reaped all the benefits from it like I did, I needed to feel what it was like on some level to be, I believe in peer-to-peer leadership. I believe in seeing eye to eye with people. And I think that's what this book was for me. It was a way for me to heal from some of my past. It was a way for me to kind of tie my career up in a nice little bow. But I had to do it in a real way, a way that made me feel good. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, she just wrote about all that stuff to sell books. And I promise you, like, don't buy my book. I don't care.
No, buy her book.
My publisher, I've been saying this all along, my publishers are like, can you please stop saying that? But I want people to know that no matter who you are, no matter what successes you achieve in your life, we're all still people, and we all still struggle with so many similar things. And I'm really proud of this book in a lot of ways because I think as brave as I was on the field, I think that this actually took a little different kind of bravery that makes me feel like I can go to sleep a little bit easier at night now.
So it actually provides a real insight into you as a leader and a captain. I mean, what you just said of wanting to put yourself in the same level. And one of the things you describe in the book after you have this just awful, you get hit on the field and you break your leg and and it's a horrible break, and then you can't go to the 2008 Olympics. And the moment you're down that your leg is broken, that the team is leaving in 8 days, you're not going to be there. And you then spend the rest of that chapter, but also what you did was to convince your team they could win it without you. In other words, that you were not this superhuman who was essential to victory, that you were just like them. And I think that's a really interesting concept of leadership, because often we think leaders are out front, but that's not the way you described it.
Well, I think that moment provided me an opportunity to make a decision. And I think no matter what happens in our lives, we're all given moments. We're all given brief moments in time. It's whether it's the DUI, like that happened to me in April, whether it's the disease that gets struck upon your family. There's a before and an after moment. We all have them. And those moments are the key moments in life that actually allow you to see what your character is about. And as a leader, I knew that if I were to have wavered for 1 second after I broke my leg, I knew that I wouldn't have been adding value or helping my team go without me to Beijing and win gold. And sometimes when you're a leader, you do have to step back and let the people that you've been leading go or fly or whatever you call it, and do what you've kind of shown them or taught them to do. And I think that provided me a really unique opportunity to test my character. Because, yeah, I was pissed. I was upset. I was devastated.
In terrible pain.
Yeah, I was devastated. But I'm proud of myself the way that I handled that, because there was all the opportunity for me to become the victim. And I think that too often nowadays, with this instant gratification and social media and all the things that our world has kind of become, it's so easy to just point the finger elsewhere. And for me, that moment was not about me, actually. It was about the team.
Well, it's, to me, as I said, a fabulous instance of leading as empowering others rather than leading as gratifying yourself. But so you mentioned the DUI, and a large part of the book really talks about struggles with alcohol and struggles with substance abuse. And there's this one place where you say, after the DUI and you kind of coming out publicly that, as somebody who's had problems with substance abuse, and then you say, that was even harder than coming out as gay. Now, that's a lot of different things, right? So you're a woman, and part of what, you've been defined as a woman athlete, and now we're fighting for equality. There's all of GLBT rights, right? And then there's also, how do we treat people among us, the many, right, who've had problems with substance abuse or with any kind of failing like that? So how do you, the fancy term for all of that is intersectionality, and we hear about that, you can't just talk about being a woman. You have to talk about being an African-American woman or a poor woman or a gay woman. Those different identities, how do they fit together in your head?
This is this whole topic, I feel, is happening so rampantly across our country and the world. And I think now, it's funny because in my book, there's a running theme. All of my chapters are kind of labels that I've either put on myself or that other people have put on me. And I think the whole reason why I did that is because I think symbolically, there's only one chapter in my book that I actually really understand as my truth, because I think labels are becoming so not only overused, but they're walling us off. I think that as people, we put ourselves in these boxes, and we build up these walls, and we only follow the people that we want to follow on Twitter, on social media. And so that's just creating this vicious cycle of never learning about something new or somebody different or a different religion or a person that grew up in a different ethnicity or from a different place or in a different sexuality or in a different gender. And I do believe that everything is now becoming more on a spectrum. I think the LGBTQIA+. Look, I feel like I'm the gayest of the gay, and I can't keep up. So every day there's something. I think that these walls that we build up just shut ourselves off from each other. And we've become so polarized that you have to be on one end of the spectrum or the other. I mean, with this presidential election, it's become so obvious, right? You either are this or that. And that doesn't bring us together. It separates us. And as I grew up, I felt all these labels: athlete, tomboy, addict, all these things that I created myself. And all that did was keep me shut off from more possibility of becoming anything, right? So there's one chapter, it's the final chapter, and it's human. Yeah. And I think if we all could actually adhere to that one label, we would be so much happier, we would be so much more accepting, we would be less fearful. I think that's the next goal, not just in my life, but I think that we all need to stop hating each other so much for our differences and embracing them. Because guess what? No one person is the same. Period. Here.
So one of the chapters you're adding is as an advocate for equality in sports. And talk about when you first really realized that, as a woman soccer player, you were not being treated the same as men. And mind you, we all remember, right? It was the women who were winning, right? I mean, you all were the...
That's my joke.
But so talk about how that kind of realization dawned on you. Many of us who have, had experiences of discrimination, there's that aha moment where that wasn't fair.
Well, I think it's interesting because it happened fairly recently after I retired. When I was in it, when I was going through all the contract negotiations during my career, there was just something that I was just grateful. I just had this grateful feeling, gosh, I'm playing pro sports. This wasn't the case. This wasn't even a possibility when I was 10 years old, right? So I had this feeling of being grateful for having what I got and being in a position to earn a living playing a sport. And that's so inherently embedded in everybody in this room. I don't care if you're a woman or a man, or if you lie somewhere in the middle. I believe that we are all created, and from the time that we're young, we can learn and get lessons and messages from our culture. We're literally told that women should be grateful for what we get, because it hasn't always been that way. Yeah. Well, when I retired, I actually started to get pretty pissed, because when I looked across the aisle and I thought about what Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi were going to do when they retire, and look, I'm not comparing myself to them, but
come on,
I won a World Cup.
And the Olympics twice.
Yeah, and 2 gold medals. That's no big deal. But when I really did think about what they would have to do in their retirement, as opposed to what I have to do, as opposed to what many women who came before me have had to do, I got really angry, and it is unfair. And I think part of what gets lost in those feelings that I have, and the anger, and then as it gets presented out into the world, is it's this deep-seated feeling that, oh, well, they're women, they should just be grateful. Because we don't have as many corporate sponsorships, or we don't have as many people watching us on TV. Well, our Women's World Cup final in 2015 was the most watched soccer game in the history of North America.
Yeah, absolutely. And the marketing budget is much, much smaller, right?
That's what they say, right? That's what they tell us. But now, all of their excuses as to why we don't get paid equally to the men, because we do not want to get paid more, we just want to be treated equal, is because they say it's a money thing. But now with the World Cup in 2015 and all the statistics that we've learned from that, it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. And we are now in a place where I think not just our team, but I think women across the board, across different aisles, whether it be Hollywood or politics or business, women deserve to be getting paid more than 77 or 78 cents to the dollar.
You're here. You're here.
And not because it's like, ooh, the feel-good thing to do. We're going to invest in women's sports, or we're going to invest in women. It's like actually because like it's smart.
Right. So how are you going to fight it? I mean, what do we? I mean, it is outrageous. When I was reading, women had to play on AstroTurf, which is much harder on your body. The men got grass. And when you say the reason you have to have a job when you retire, the men don't. It's because they make so much money they don't need a job after they retire, right? So these are big differences. How do we change it?
Well, I think that the women, my former teammates, have a lawsuit that they filed to hopefully get more support financially, obviously. And it's not just about money. It's about respect.
Right.
It's about equality and being treated as equals to their peers. And I think, I've gone around the country since retiring, and I've kind of committed myself to this passion of making sure that Alex Morgan doesn't have to feel the same way the day that she chooses to retire that I felt. And I've met with tons of leaders, I've met with tons of CEOs, and I'm literally in like the design and research phase of creating a plan so that this doesn't continue to happen. And what I think is so interesting, and I don't care what your political beliefs are, but what excites me the most about the idea of Hillary Clinton being in the Oval Office is that, is that she provides that 10-year-old girl this symbol and this inspiration and this belief that she can do anything. Like literally, she can hold any job in the world. She could be the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. And that, for me, that symbol is just like, it fires me up. It makes me want to like go back to like being a 10-year-old right now. There's been no greater time in human history than now to be a woman. And what excites me even more about that symbolism is the 10-year-old boy. The 10-year-old boy that goes to school with that 10-year-old girl, and that looks across that classroom and sits next to that 10-year-old girl and thinks to himself, she could be the commander-in-chief one day.
Absolutely.
And I think that there's something real about that.
I love it. Love it. So one last question, because we're almost out of time. I read this book, I'm listening to you, and you're putting together all these identities, but I have to say, as an athlete at the level you played, you surely have experienced that one other label that you have now very definitely broken out of. But did people look at you and think, you're a jock, so you must be a dumb jock? You can't, if you're that great on the field, you just can't be that smart.
Well, I think that I actually thought that I was not that smart throughout my entire life because of that whole idea that if you play sports, you can't be smart.
You can't be both.
But I think that the definition of being smart and intelligent has so many different ways to define it, right? Sometimes when I read, I fall asleep. So I'm not a great reader. I'm very street smart. I can carry on a conversation with like a wall. There's things that I'm good at that make me feel like I can have good conversation and that I am smart and I am intelligent. And then here's the thing, you guys, Malcolm Gladwell said it best in his Outlier book, or I think it may have been David and Goliath, that the CEOs, the top CEOs in our country, in Forbes 500, a lot of them have like dyslexia. And the reason why they were able to be so successful is because they magnified their strengths. They knew what their weaknesses were, and then that forced them to figure out different pathways, not just in their brain, but in their life, to be successful. And that's what life's all about, right? It's about knowing what you're good at, knowing maybe what your weaknesses are, and magnifying your strengths as much as you can. Work on your weaknesses when you possibly can also. But I'm so lucky to have been able to play this sport for so many years. Let's hope that the concussion thing doesn't take effect to my brain. It's not a laughing matter. Don't tweet about that or something. But I'm thrilled because I've been able to travel the world and open my mind. And in 15, 20 years of playing on the national team, I am a different person than when I started. And it's because I've had these really amazing conversations with all the amazing women I've played with in my younger years and in my older years. And writing this book just kind of capped off what I felt like was a solid run. And I'm excited to see what happens in the coming years of my career, and I'm really excited to see what happens with the women's national team because they're coming back 2019.